Hey, I'm talking to Wei Zhou of Binance. And Wei, you've only just started at Binance, right? You've only been there a couple of months.
I started in September, so 3 months now.
That's a pretty wild time to start.
It has been nonstop. Flew around the world 3 or 4 times already.
Yeah, yeah. How did you come to be working there?
I've known the founders since 2014-15, and I met them when they were both working at OKCoin in Beijing, and then that's where I've been based for the last 15 years, being basically CFO for various companies in the tech space.
Right, you mentioned in your presentation before that you were actually CFO at Grindr before this, and that you hope that Binance would be more fun than that. Like, is it?
No, they're not more fun. I said Grindr is an amazing and fun company, but I'm looking for something that that's more, I would say, how do I want to put this? More global in its nature, and also work in an industry where my role goes beyond just financial management, which is what I'm doing here. I'm really here to help Binance to build its global fiat business.
All right, well, let's talk about that then, because I think that's kind of an interesting direction for Binance to take. They've always been known as a crypto-only exchange and one that listed many assets. So when did they decide to go into the fiat world, and why?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things in terms of driving our business is basically to help to build the ecosystem. And one of the biggest challenges that investors face is actually proper channels to buy and sell cryptocurrency in and out of fiat. So we're looking to basically build fiat on-ramps and off-ramps in different parts of the world. And the goal is to basically have at least two fiat exchanges in each continent in the world. Right now we've landed in Africa, and we're landing in Asia, and we're hoping to land in Europe soon.
Right, the very first one you opened was in Uganda, and which to me doesn't strike me as the place you would go to start a groundbreaking crypto exchange.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point of Uganda is actually, because the bigger goal for Binance is basically to build our user base on a global basis. Right now we have over 10 million. We want to build that, 10x that to 100 million, and then 10x that again to a billion, right? And if you look at that from that perspective, Africa offers the next big opportunity in terms of not just cryptocurrency users, but actually mobile internet, mobile money users. And from that perspective, a lot of the use cases that we see for cryptocurrency, storage of value, lower cost of remittance, global in nature, all of that, if we can leverage that into building a financial service provider in the continent of Africa, that would be amazing, because currently only about 15% have access to traditional banking services.
So what's cryptocurrency use actually like in places like Uganda?
Very low.
Yeah.
If you look at it's a country of about 40 million people, and then smartphone penetration is only about 4 million. So I think it's in the very early stages, but it's growing very rapidly in terms of smartphone penetration, and the demographics is very young. So all that means is that if you have the right service, you have the right products, it's going to be a very interesting place.
Do you actually have a lot of Chinese investors or Chinese workers based in Africa who are using that exchange through local contacts or proxies?
Not right now. I think right now we're still testing it. I think the real use case is going to come once we start onboarding in other local countries, basically, and adding additional mobile money service providers to basically provide that simple service in terms of it. But in terms of the Chinese, contingency in Africa, that is a huge group that could be users for us.
So could you describe the process of approaching the local regulators there and saying that we'd like to open our first crypto to fiat exchange in your country? Like, what was their reaction?
Yeah, we were invited to attend the blockchain summit there back in May, and then we were invited to basically visit the prime minister there back in I think March, April-ish. So I think it is basically a very classic, up-and-coming African country that is looking to cryptocurrency to basically build its economy and to build innovation.
That's actually kind of surprising.
Yes and no, because I think we've basically been since I've been joined, I've met with regulators and government officials from over 10 countries. So I think a lot of countries are looking towards blockchain, and cryptocurrency is an essential part of the blockchain. Right, so I think what we find is that given our brand and given our reach and our profile, a lot of intellectual capital, a lot of financial capital kind of follow us and sort of see where Binance sets up. And that in a way, we bring that ecosystem to that country. And that's something that is actually that we look forward to working with.
Did you find that the global brand recognition that Binance has was a big help to you setting up there, or something over maybe a startup, a local startup, or something like that?
I think there's a couple of things. I think the local startups, there are startups in this space around the world, and we hope to work with them. I don't think we view this as a winner-take-all kind of a market. I think it's all about driving adoption, building the ecosystem together.
Right. Okay. Then, so once you've conquered Africa, what's next?
I don't see that's the mentality. I don't want to conquer. I don't want to mention sort of anything about conquering Africa at all. I think it's all about sort of like bring in sort of like bringing access, lowering the cost of financial services. Because right now, if you look at it, like if you just look at the surrounding countries of Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, anytime someone travels from country A to Kenya to Tanzania, they lose 5% converting the currency. They travel back, they lose another 5%. Anytime they send SMS mobile payments, the mobile service provider will charge them 5%. So I think there's a lot of these sort of like fees could be reduced, in that people get to retain their money and retain their wealth. So I think that's something that we're looking to drive. I mean, and I think that's in general one of the use cases of cryptocurrency around the world, in terms of offering an alternative to the traditional financial channels, in terms of doing remittance, right? I think that's something that that is very if we can drive or build, that would be a huge use case in itself.
Yeah, it's always been one of the the great promises of crypto, that it's going to make remittances cheaper, but people have always had that problem with the last mile. I guess you're addressing that now, which is good.
The fiat on ramps and off ramps, like, because people still live in the fiat world, right? Until you can pay your dinner, buy your groceries, and shop online with crypto, you still have to live in the fiat world. So I think from that perspective, for normal people, you still need to have access to fiat as a way to sort of like so. But the thing is that the definition of fiat is different. Like, for example, in China, it's pretty much a cashless economy already.
Really?
Because of WeChat Pay and Alipay.
Yeah.
So you basically, that happened within the last 3 years, even 4 years, right? And I think if you live in a country where people's first access to internet is through a smartphone, and that comes with a mobile or crypto wallet, and then your values are stored in there, and then you get critical mass with that, I think it's very easily to see that adoption taking place.
Right. I mean, I think it's fascinating that you're moving into that space and attempting to make that conversion for them. But where else are you looking at? You said you were also looking at Europe and Asia. Yeah. Which jurisdictions?
Both. So in Asia, we're looking at Singapore. We've announced we are still sort of testing our product there, and then in Europe, we're looking at Malta and Jersey in terms of launching into the Eurozone. So as currencies, looking at the Sing dollar and euro.
See, Malta, Jersey, and Singapore, they seem more like your typical crypto exchange locations.
I mean, the smaller boats. What is it? Smaller boats are easier to sell. Yep. Sort of like smaller countries are more flexible, and I think because what we found is kind of like. How do you want to put it? Like the traditional nation state back in sort of like the either during the Italian sort of Renaissance age or during the ancient Greeks, those are basically the people who are on the island or people who are in the region run their own government, and they know exactly what they sort of want. They react faster. and they, and those are all healthy financial. Those are all healthy regions from both a jurisdictional perspective and in terms of a financial regulation perspective. And in those different countries, we're actually building regulated financial institutions that follow local, whether it's MFSA in Malta, JFSC in Jersey, or the MAS in Singapore, they follow local regulations. So I think they follow local AML standards. So I think that's something that these are regulated exchanges that we're building.
Excellent. And since we're here in Thailand, I have to ask, are you considering anything in Thailand or looking at any options here?
Not right now, no. Yeah.
Is it the regulatory environment here is not ready quite yet?
No, I think I don't know that much about the industry here. I think my focus, or our focus, the last couple, since I've been here, has been more on Singapore. I think that is sort of like the center for banking and for financial services in Southeast Asia. So we hope to launch that service in Singapore first.
Excellent. Well, good luck with it all. And Wei Zhou, thanks very much for talking to us today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.